Proper introductions. There we go. Okay, so we're now officially launched. Welcome to Operating Safely in Humboldt County. This is the second of the Thriving Together webinars. And the purpose of these webinars is to make sure that we are continuing roughly once a week to provide business owners in the North Coast community with practical guidance, best practices, and lessons in whatever is going to help us all get through the pandemic crisis, hopefully with our heads above water and our businesses in the black. The topics that we've been hearing about that folks want from us are, how can I do more better digital marketing so that I'm reaching customers that I'm not running into in other ways? How can I pivot better to e-commerce? Help me plan for the worst case scenario just in case I need to scale back or close down. What are my practical guidelines there? And much more. So just keep in mind, at the end of this webinar, we will be asking what you want us to put on for you next. Want to say thank you to Scott Adair, who is on the line with us. Scott is the Director of Economic Development for Humboldt County. And until very recently, he and his entire team had been co-opted to contribute to the emergency response. So while Scott is not currently, as of, I guess, yesterday or the day before, not currently the point person for guiding and directing the business certification process, he did largely help to create it and is more than willing to answer all the questions that he can today. We will be pushing out an alert once we're able to announce who the person is who's been brought on board to oversee the business certification process. I'm told that she is very competent and very experienced, so I'm glad of that. And that way you'll know who to turn to when the time comes. I think she's still in orientation. But that said, there's still plenty of guidelines out there to help folks figure out how to operate. So let's just dive in. The folks on this particular webinar who are here live, for those of you who are listening to the recording, are mostly falling into food and personal services and a little bit of retail, one office workspace. So we're going to center a lot of the guidance around that, but we will make room for a Q&A at the end that kind of explores everything. The agenda. We've done our introductions. We're going to ask Scott to give us a sneak peek through the California Governor's Resilience Roadmap, because it offers a lot of guidance by industry. And it essentially sets what all of the counties have to comply with anyway. Then we're going to go a bit deeper into what the Humboldt County business certification process looks like, and take a look at how, talk about how to build your own plan if you haven't yet. Scott's going to talk about what we currently know about where you can turn for help and for answers during the pandemic as a business owner. And then he'll talk about what's coming next. What we know is, this is your sneak peek of the latest news. And then finally, I'm going to share a an example of a retail standard operating procedure that was developed by a nationally respected SBDC leader called Ray Bowman. He's in charge of the Ventura County SBDC. And I just, I like it because it's very practical. Checkbox, I have done this, I have not done that. And it gives you a sense of what your to-do list might be. I will also, in the follow-up to this, send the recording to everyone along with all of the links and a downloadable version of this standard operating procedure. Okay, why don't we just dive in? Scott, you have the ability to share your screen, but I also have the Resilience Roadmap up on mine, so I'm happy for us to do it either way.
Great, perfect, thank you. Layla, much appreciated. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. I'm using this Word document as my virtual whiteboard, and I may put some information on this page as we have our discussion and just go through the reopening and certification process. And Layla, if at any time I stray or go off track or I talk too long, just feel free to rein me back in.
I'll do this. Give you the hairy eyeball.
So my name is Scott Adair, and I'm the Director of Economic Development for the County of Humboldt. I'm also a former business owner, and I really enjoy working with our local businesses and advocating for their needs. Until recently, Layla is correct. Until recently, our team was operating in the Emergency Operations Center. We were actually there for approximately 60 days, helping the Humboldt County Office of Emergency Services and also the Humboldt County Joint Information Center in their response, or assisting them in their response to the economic portion of the COVID-19 crisis. I do want to give some information. If you're looking to get a hold of me directly, I'll put my, of course, I'm trying to type, and this is our direct line to our office, and by calling this number, you can either reach myself or any one of the specialists or coordinators who work in our office and work on my team. But what I do want to share with you for the purposes of this call would be contact information and resources as it relates to where you can get guidance or more information concerning your reopening plans. So prior to this process coming into effect, the reopening certification process, businesses were allowed to open based on whether or not they were considered essential or non-essential. This is something that I think all of you are familiar with. And this was related to the shelter in place order, which came out from the public health officer. When the initial quarantine and shelter in place order was put into effect, the county policy committee, which includes the public health officer, there's Dr. Frankovich and the Humboldt County Sheriff and other administrative officials, they first made a determination regarding what types of businesses could remain open and operational during the quarantine order and during shelter in place, based on whether or not that business was deemed to provide an essential service or was part of essential infrastructure. And of course, those were things like grocery stores, medical facilities, etc. But as the governor's office and the state began to release its plan and put into effect its plan for an incremental reopening of the economy, this essential, non-essential process for allowing businesses to either open or reopen was replaced by the reopening and certification process, which is led by the Humboldt County Joint Information Center. And so what does this process mean? Well, the state of California, they made a determination that in order to allow for industries to reopen as part of its recommendation for a reopening of the economy, or a staged or phased reopening of the economy, that businesses would need to put together what is called an industry-specific, site-specific protection plan. And I'm highlighting that here. You can see it on your screen. Rather than calling it a site-specific protection plan, because that's somewhat of a mouthful, the county just decided to call it a reopening plan. And the reopening plan, or site-specific protection plan, is a plan that is put together by the businesses in order to, it's their operational protocols, if you will, or the procedures that they will follow in order to prevent spread and further contagion or transmission of the disease. And most of the most of these plan specifics include protocols and measures that have already been communicated to industry by the CDC or by the public health officer, and which have also been communicated through the state on this page here. This is the industry guidance page. So if you were to navigate to covid19.ca.gov, and you could / go to industry guidance, you'll come here to this page with 5 steps that a business must follow before they can reopen, which includes the site-specific protection plan. And then if you scroll down, you can find by industry guidance for those site-specific protection plans. And the guidance links will take you to other documents. Sometimes these are documents which have been created either by or for the industry itself, or in partnership with public or state health officials or the CDC. And you can see here as I'm scrolling through that the guidance for childcare, for example, is quite specific and addresses practices and operational procedures and behaviors which would really only be specific to the childcare industry. So napping, for example, the guidance is that for napping, persons or children will be placed 6 feet apart, and that they'll be head to toe, essentially, so that they're alternating in opposite directions. This is just one example of a guidance document that has been put together for this industry. And there are others available for construction, food packing. I think there was a food packager on this call, retail, restaurants, other types of industries. Here's retail guidance for retailers and who this does and does not apply to. So we can get into a little bit more detail concerning the preparation of these plans and how those plans are submitted to Humboldt County. Although I know that one question that will come up, if it hasn't come up already, is, but none of these industries seem to necessarily apply to me, or none of this industry guidance seems to apply to me, or my business is very unique and it can't easily fit into one of these sector categories. And so under what category do I submit my plan? And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail later. I do want to come back to it, so don't let me forget. But for now, let's go through the actual plan process. So once you've determined what your site-specific protection plan is going to be, and again, my recommendation is this is just something that you write out on your own, whether you do it on your computer or you write it in a notebook, you put it in a Word document, a shared document, whatever works easiest for you. Just you're putting together a detailed risk assessment and implementation plan for control measures and other disinfecting protocols, social distancing protocols, and other measures to protect your employees and your customers. And you're just writing that out. I'm going to provide hand washing stations for my employees. I'm going to provide hand sanitization stations for customers. We're going to have stickers on the floor that encourage customers to stay 6 feet apart. Whatever is specific to your business, you'll include that in your plan. If you don't have employees, and some businesses don't, you'll list out what specific protection measures or procedures that you'll implement to protect yourself and also to protect your customers, or to protect maybe vendors or other partners you work with. Even businesses who don't necessarily have customers typically have vendors or suppliers or other persons who they're still interacting with on a regular basis. And once you've written out your plan and don't get too intimidated. I have seen some plans that are 22 pages long, and I can bring up an example here. Find it. So this plan that I'm going to bring up as an example, this is a plan that was put together for the motion picture, television, and film industry. And this was a white paper, so the industry itself together worked on this plan. It wasn't put together by any specific studio, but it's very comprehensive. You can see that it's very slick looking. A professional graphic designer probably put it together. Has an introduction, table of contents, what the guiding principles are, and then how they're going to implement infection control measures, the use of personal protective equipment, uh, hand hygiene. This type of plan, while it's beneficial, this is the type of plan that often scares business owners. They see this 22-page document and they think, I don't have the time or the resources to put together a plan like this. Well, a one-page plan can be just as sufficient. And it can be something that you simply, put in a Word document, to protect my employees. I will, to provide for social distancing. I will, etc. And put it in a document. Have a couple of bullet points explaining the measures that you're going to follow. And then put your business name on it and sign it. It can be that simple. So when you hear about, I've got to put together this comprehensive plan, don't let it be too intimidating to you. A lot of the information is available online, again, either here at the state's website or by a simple Google search. You might find information specific to your industry or your business type that might be helpful to you. For example, I talked to a photographer who said, I haven't found any state or county guidelines that would apply to photographers since I can do a lot of my work outside of the studio and I go to the customer. But by just simply Googling COVID prevention and protection measures for photographers, he found great information online that he was able to almost basically copy and paste right into his plan. So once you're able to put together your plan or identify what your industry type is and what your plan might look like, the plans are all submitted online to the county. And they're all submitted online through the county's website, which is humboldtgov.org. There are two places where you can submit your plan. Right on the front page, there is a button here. It's green, center of the page, titled Submit Plan, under the heading Business Submit Your Reopening Plan. You can also go to the Business Resources tab here, and we'll talk about that tab in a little bit more detail later. If you do click on the Business Resources tab, there is another similar button at the very top of the page that says Submit Plan. So let's go through and see what a plan submittal might look like. When you click on the Submit Plan page, it's actually going to take you to what we call a pre-page. And it's going to give you some information concerning who should submit a plan, how to get started, who to call if you have questions about your plan, which activities are still not allowed. You can see nightclubs are not allowed, festivals are not allowed at this time, theme parks are not allowed at this time. And then what some of the guiding documents might be to help provide, or I should say references, for those who are looking for assistance in putting together their plan. These are the links to the state resources that we were looking at earlier. There are some other links here to the Humboldt County local health orders, which have come out from the public health officer, and a variety of different CDC references and links available here that you can go to. So for example, you click on the CDC cleaning and disinfecting link, it will take you right to cleaning and disinfecting guidelines and measures that are recommended by the CDC. And a lot of these, again, you could simply, if your business involves laundering clothing or towels or linens, for example, you could simply copy this and put it in your plan. I will agree to follow this guidance or these recommendations that come from the CDC concerning laundering clothing, towels, and linens. Going back to the plan submittal page, when you're ready to submit, you choose here, and it's not that intuitive, so I'll go through it again. I'm going to go back to, so you click on submit plan either here or back at the county's main page. And then you can read through all of this guidance, but in order to get started, you want to scroll down to the reopening plan forms. And when you get to the reopening plan forms, it's going to list out various sectors. Again, going back to the comment I made earlier, someone might say, but my business doesn't seem to fit into any of these sectors, and we'll discuss that momentarily. So let's say you decide to pick food packing because you're a food packing business. You would click on the food packing link. And this link is going to take you directly to a portal where you can enter in your information online. And so I'll put in some, oops. Sometimes I put in fake ones, but I'll put in my real one for the purpose of this exercise so that you can see the auto response that comes. So you enter in your email address. That's the first step, because that's going to be how the County Joint Information Center primarily will be communicating with you concerning your plan. You're going to put in your business name and the business jurisdiction where you're located. We'll say this business is located in Blue Lake. Put in your phone number. That way, if there are any questions concerning your plan, you can be contacted. And then put in your business address. I don't know the zip code for Blue Lake. And I put the wrong. Once you've put in all of your basic demographical information for your business, you're going to put your contact information in. That way, if someone from the Joint Information Center or the reopening unit or certification team needs to contact you about your plan, they have all of your contact information, they know who to reach out to, and they know who to call. Once you've submitted your contact information and just basic demographical information for your business, it's going to take you right to the plan document. And this here is where you're going to enter in your plan information. And then this is the topic, employee training. What training specific to your business will you provide to your employees? Now, again, I mentioned before that there's state guidance here for different industry types. The county has provided guidance here. And yet again, you'll see that in this document, the reopening plan document, there's even additional guidance down here, items to consider. It doesn't mean that you have to include or exclude any of the items that are listed down here. It's just another prompt to give you an idea as to how to answer this question or what information it is that they're looking for your site-specific plan. So you could simply enter in your information. I will train employees by, or you can copy and paste. If you have your plan ready to go and already typed up, you can copy it from your plan document. You can go back to the website and paste the information right in. When you
Scott,
have, yep,
so sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to ask a question I anticipate will come up.
okay.
I can't remember if there is anywhere for someone to see all of the questions at once so they can create their answers in a Word document for copying and pasting.
The questions for the most part are the same across all the sector types. There are one or two industries, just because of the specific nature of what they do, that might have an extra or additional question. But the questions are, and I can pull those up for you. I don't know that they're listed exclusive or explicitly online, but I can pull up what those questions are, and then we can review those. And maybe what I could do then, Layla, is put that into the chat box here, and then maybe we can work together to push that out.
Yeah, let's do that offline, and we'll make those available on our website too. Thanks.
So primarily there are 4 questions. The first question is concerning training for employees. Enter in your information here, hit next. It will take you to control measures and screening measures. Again, you can copy this right from your plan. You can use the resources which have been provided to you either by the state or the CDC or other industry guidance that you've come across for your industry. You can use these items here as promptings to help guide you. You put your information in, and you just continue to click next as you answer these questions. Now, some have asked me, well, how long does this need to be? You certainly don't want it to be as simplistic as, for example, cleaning and disinfecting protocols. You don't simply want to answer, I will follow the cleaning and disinfecting protocols, because what the County Joint Information Center is actually looking for is a little bit more detail concerning how you will do so, not necessarily that you're just committing to or attesting to that you will. So put in, I would recommend at least 3 bullet points or 4 bullet points from your plan for how it is that you plan to address this particular topic. And if there is a request for more information, or the plan reviewer thinks that your plan is lacking detail, they will reach out to you. But this certainly does not have to be a 1,000-word answer or response here. I've seen some as long as, a few paragraphs. That's fine. I've seen, where it looks like entire pages were uploaded here, and that's not necessary. So once you've included all of your information, we'll just get through a couple of these plan elements here. Physical distancing guidelines, you'll put in your information concerning how you'll follow physical distancing and social distancing guidelines. You get to the end of the plan, which is the attestation, which essentially it's you're warranting and representing as the business owner these items here, and you do have to select the box. I, the undersigned, I, the business owner or manager, whoever has been empowered or has the authority to complete the plan, has performed a detailed risk assessment and implemented a site-specific protection plan on training employees, how to limit the spread of COVID-19, control measures, screenings, disinfecting protocols, and that you're implementing physical distancing guidelines. And then you just sign it by entering in your name. I'll put test here. so that the Joint Information Center knows I'm doing it, because they will receive this as soon as I turn it in. And you hit submit. Now, I know that seemed maybe overly simplified, but if you have your plan written, or even just the bullet points or a framework of your plan already written out, maybe in a Word document ready to go, then it really is simply just a matter of copy and pasting the information over into that portal, and then hitting submit, and then it will give you a submission confirmation. Thank you for your submission. Your plan has been received. A copy will be emailed to you. If you do not receive it shortly, check your junk box. I will say that that is a problem. We have found that these plans do go to spam, or they do go to people's junk boxes or other folders. So make sure that you're looking in all of your email folders for this confirmation. You're provided with a link here. I would recommend that you copy this link. You can just simply copy it this way, or you can go to the link and copy it. But this link brings you back to your plan. If you decided, oh, I forgot to include that we're going to put a sign up in the window and we're going to ask customers to wear masks. You can go back and you can edit your response, and it will take you right through your plan. All of your responses will be there already pre-populated. And you can just go to the appropriate screen, wherever that may be. Like, I forgot to include that I will have a, sign for customers to wear masks, etc. And then once you have modified your plan or made that revision or that correction, just go back through the plan to review, and then just hit submit again. And then the Joint Information Center will receive your revised plan. So what happens next? That's been the million-dollar question. So when you submit your plan, the plan goes to the Joint Information Center, and it goes into a Google shared sheet. So this is the Google Drive sheet here, and all of the plans are actually uploaded into a Google Drive that the entire Joint Information Center has access to. And then that Google Drive, I tried doing this before. It didn't, for some reason, Google's not pulling up for me, or the document's not pulling up for me. But oh, here we go. So the Google shared sheet contains information for the reviewers and an overview of the plan and how the plan works. You can see, unfortunately, I can't share any specific plans with you. I wasn't able to receive authorization to do that, but you can see, for example, under hair salons and barber shops, that 123 plans have been submitted, and all but one of them have been assigned to a reviewer. However, because hair salons and barber shops are not allowed right now to open, none of them have been certified. 0 have been certified. Dine-in restaurants, 201 submissions from restaurants, 195 without errors. So that means 6 of them, there was something wrong, and the reviewer likely had to reach out and ask them to make a correction. And out of the 201 submissions, 181 of them have been reviewed and approved. So all of the information flows here to this spreadsheet, the Joint Information Center. These are some of the different reviewers. You may recognize some of these names. They're people in the community throughout either in the business industry or partner agencies or from various municipalities who are helping with the process. Let's see here. When your plan is approved by the Joint Information Center, you will receive an email notification, and you will also receive a certificate that you can print and put on your window or on the wall that states, I've successfully completed my reopening plan and I'm certified to operate for business. Questions concerning the plan certification process. Right now we have an email, which is humcoreopens@co.humboldt.ca.us. And so any business who has a question very specific to their plan, has it been received because I haven't received the email notification, or a plan reviewer hasn't gotten back to me, or why is it taking so long? And I haven't received my certificate yet, even though I received notification that my plan was approved. Those types of questions can go directly to humco.reopens@co.humboldt.ca.us. We're working now to get a dedicated line for the reopening unit, but we don't have that line yet. A subunit to the Joint Information Center was just created this week, and they're in the process of putting together a team to help answer those queries. When we have that number, we can share it. For now, anything specific to your certification or reopening plan, as far as approval is concerned, reach out to this email address. But if you're just looking for general guidance or support or assistance, you can reach out to us through the COVID Business Information line. And that line is 707-268-2527. The best way that I can, maybe the best analogy that I can come up with to help describe the various roles in this process, because it is confusing. Consider the COVID Business Information line here. We're like H&R Block. We're the tax preparer to help you prepare your taxes or your plan, or to give you guidance or recommendations concerning what your plan should and should not include and whether or not your plan is eligible. But the Joint Information Center, or the JIC as we like to call it, they're the team, they're actually certifying the plans. You could think of them like they're like the IRS. So we're H&R Block, they're the IRS. We are working together, but we're not necessarily one and the same. So even though we may be able to help you and support you with the reopening process, it still is the Joint Information Center that is going to have to approve that plan and issue your certification. I've been somewhat long-winded. I wonder if I should, I said I would get back to what if something my business doesn't seem to fall into any specific plan style or type? Well, there is a category called limited services here. It acts a little bit as a catch-all, as a miscellaneous category, even though it's somewhat vague as to what limited services may be. So if you're not sure if your business falls into any one of these categories here, or maybe there's some overlap, you've got, well, I kind of have both. I have a retail component to my business, but I also have this office component. Then you can apply under limited services and submit your plan there. Or you can simply, you can reach out to us. We may know specifically. We may have already been through your specific business type before, and we know what the information or the response will be from the Joint Information Center. So you could call us here and we could give you guidance. Or you could email the Joint Information Center directly at humcoreopens@co.humboldt.ca.us, and you could ask, just where exactly am I supposed to submit my plan, because this is my business type and it doesn't seem to necessarily fall into any of the industry sectors or categories that are listed online. So maybe it's a good time to answer or address any questions that have already, I see there are a couple in there in the Q&A.
Yep. So you've addressed one of them. The second, which is another common one, is just to reaffirm here, if you find that your business doesn't fall naturally within one of these categories, use limited services, but you suggest calling first just to double check in case there's an easy answer. But the second is, there are some that really do operate two pretty different lines of business. An example might be a food manufacturer that has a retail storefront. Are you saying they should complete a limited services entry for both, or do you think they need to do separate plans? I've heard both answers in different contexts, so I wonder what the latest is.
Yeah, so our recommendation has been if you have, so maybe an easier way to break it down or to create some delineation between the different types of operations would be to look at it literally from a perspective of space. This is all about control measures and prevention measures in spaces where individuals can potentially contract the virus. Most of those spaces are indoors, but there are some outdoor, there are operations which are also outdoors, and there are CDC recommendations and some guidance and provisions for outdoor business activity as well. But if you're a business and you have some real separation or delineation between space in your operation, where I have a retail component, but my retail component is located over here, and it really operates and functions almost like a separate retail establishment because my office component is located up a flight of stairs and it's completely removed and separated from one another. Then really you're looking at two plans. You're looking at your retail plan, and then you're looking at your office plan. And so the recommendation we're giving to businesses in that case where there's real distinct separation between those industry activities, to do multiple plans. But if it's all kind of together, if there's really no distinction between maybe you do have somewhat of a retail component to your business, but your I'm trying to think of a unique scenario. Here's an example. A wedding consultant. A wedding consultant might be meeting with a couple in their home, maybe meeting with them in an office, maybe going to a retail establishment with them to help them look at supplies or materials for their wedding, going to restaurants, meeting with caterers, checking out facilities. And so it's so broad that wedding consultant couldn't put together a plan, a retail plan, a restaurant plan, to come up with every possible scenario. So in that case, we tell that business, put your plan under limited services, just explain what you do. Even though the plan, the question just jumps immediately to how are you going to protect your employees? Well, the body of the plan, it's text driven, and you can add narrative. So a business could add, I'm a wedding consultant. I don't have employees, but I do meet with my customers or my clients in other business settings. And then this is how I expect to operate to ensure the safety of my clientele. So I know that was a really vague answer to your question, but we tell people, hey, when in doubt, if you're not sure, and if it's not difficult for you or too complicated, submit multiple plans. Submit under the other industry types. But if you're just confused or you're not sure what to do, just submit under limited services, or just reach out to Humco Reopens directly and just ask them what it is that they recommend.
So I'm going to pose some questions that are particular to people, and then maybe we can either dig into the direct answers now, or at least we'll know that these are pending questions and we'll be able to get back to the participants afterwards. But that's a good general overview. And I just want to note that we've gone through the state roadmap and the industry guidelines. Scott's taken us through the process of submitting your reopening plan, and what happens once you've done that. We've talked a little bit about where to turn for help and answers, with the caveat that there's more coming. Scott's going to talk next about what might be coming up next that is certain, and also what we are hoping to find out that is not yet decided about what's going on with the pandemic and how it impacts business owners and their employees, if you have any. I've got a link in the chat box, but I'm also going to go through an example of essentially a standard operating procedure that you can use practically, but also maybe share with the committee doing reviews of plans. And then we'll go into Q&A if there's more. We don't necessarily have to go all the way to the very 2-hour mark. So if your questions are answered and we can wrap up early, that's fine too. So Scott, do you want to riff a little bit on what's coming next? And Scott, as you're doing that, I'm going to encourage folks to post in the Q&A box. What are the questions that are top of mind for you about what the future holds for your business? We may or may not be able to answer them all here, but maybe this is something that we can start thinking about, and it's helpful for Scott to know so he can pass it on to the county folks who are in charge.
Yeah.
So what do you think's coming down the pike?
Happy to, and I've got my little whiteboard Word document up again. So a lot of questions have come up regarding why the process works the way that it works now, and how the process will perhaps change moving forward. And I can share with you from our perspective, the county's perspective, and just also mine, and the perspective of the CAO and also our partner agencies, why things are operating the way that they are now and what we can expect in the future. The plan for businesses is really led by the county's COVID mitigation policy team. And that policy team is led by Dr. Frankovich, the public health officer, and also our sheriff. The other participants in that policy team include representatives from DHHS, representatives from our CAO's office, and other county administrative officials and elected officials. And so there has been some disconnect that we have encountered just in talking with individuals who they're not sure, because all of the roles have changed. Pre-COVID, it was the Board of Supervisors. It was the enforcement and regulatory agencies like the planning and building team, the treasurer tax collector, who issued business licenses. These are the entities that businesses were accustomed to working with concerning, hey, what is it that my business needs to do in order to open? Environmental health would perform inspections of businesses to ensure that they were compliant with public health measures. And so they're just the nature of the way that the crisis is being addressed and mitigated, because it's switched from some of these departmental or agency relationships, if you will, pre-COVID, to now more of a policy body or a policy-making team, which involves public health and law enforcement and county administration. It's just been a challenge for businesses to navigate. And businesses have often also asked, why is it that our county will do X, Y, or Z while the county next door to us is doing something entirely different, or they have a different plan, or they have a different set of restrictions? Well, the reason why, just based on our county code and previous legislation. It's the public health officer who really has the final decision-making authority with regards to protecting the public during the crisis. And so the public health officer, while I have observed Dr. Frankovich seems to generally follow the guidance that comes from the governor's office and from the state. She does have the ability to make modifications or be more restrictive if she thinks that it's in the best interests of the county and residents. And not every public health officer in every county across the state necessarily agrees. And so that's why you see in some cases there's uniformity. I think every county has adopted, facial maskings. I have my mask hanging around my neck, right, ready to go at all times. But then that's why you may see some counties that are allowing for public events, whereas our county is not, because at the county level, the public health officer has great flexibility and autonomy to work with their policy team to create policies that are specific to our local community. The governor's office and our team and the policy team do stay in contact with one another. We do participate in ongoing regular calls with GoBiz and also with Cal OES, which is the state counterpart to our own Office of Emergency Services. But even then, sometimes things change rapidly, and sometimes we're learning about things on the news and seeing it online, just like the businesses are. And so in that regard, we do also share in some of the frustration. We understand how challenging it can be. I think this is the first time in over 100 years that we've had a pandemic that has reached this point of crisis, that it's impacted the business community so. And I'm sure we're going to learn a lot from this afterwards and realize that we need to go back and retool the process and refine it. But if you're wondering, well, what direction are we going in, and what are the decisions that Dr. Frankovich and the public health officer and the policy team and the sheriff are going to make concerning businesses? I would encourage you to follow the updates at covid19.ca.gov from the governor's office, because it really truly is, and I pulled it up here, I'm sharing my screen. You can subscribe to the governor's updates on Twitter or on Facebook. I prefer Facebook. They have a link to all of the videos and the PSAs that have come out from the governor's office. And the Facebook page is, I don't want to do either of those things. The Facebook page is facebook.com/CA governor. And there are links here to past video announcements concerning the economy, updates on the state's response to COVID, and when they do live streams, if the governor has information that he wants to share concerning any of the physical distancing measures or any other measures for businesses, they'll stream it live here. If you don't have Facebook or you avoid it, I know we're all suffering a little bit from information overload, and sometimes we don't want more social media or information. You can simply just monitor that state website for state reopening plans. That's located here. If you scroll down, click on the state reopening plan. There's information here concerning the different stages for opening the economy and what those stages look like, and updates for customers, employers, employees, for what they can expect throughout the different stages. It is important to note, even though the ultimate goal, where we're headed, is an end to quarantine measures and shelter in place orders and a resumption of normal activities and travel, if the virus does worsen, or if there's further contagion, or if certain metrics are met, i.e., number of terminal cases or the number of cases as a pro rata share of population, uh, the governor or the public health officer can actually walk us back and take us back to an earlier stage of preparation and safety, which could mean going back to another shelter in place type scenario where, again, only essential businesses are allowed to operate.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. That's an important point, and we're going to segue to questions, but I just want to reemphasize that this is a pandemic that depends on good individual behavior as much as anything. And the other point that I like to make on a regular basis is we're not seeing a distinction between the economy and people's physical safety from the infection. They go together. And the last thing that any of us wants for Humboldt County or frankly, our neighboring communities is that folks let things fall through the cracks or are careless. And by folks, I mean customers, employees, business owners, people who are just out and about, not washing hands, not obeying 6-foot distancing, not wearing masks. And then all of a sudden we've got a spike in infections. We're forced back into the shutdown mode. And every business owner that was working so very hard to try and climb out of this and stay serving customers is thrown right back into crisis, or even worse, crisis. So they go together. And Scott, if you don't mind, are you at a point where I can take over a screen share and show folks that place where the sample plans are?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And then we will go through each of your questions individually. Even if we feel like we've already answered them, I just want to make sure that we take extra care to really make sure that you go away having had your specific and detailed questions answered. So in the chat box is a link to the VC Reopens, Ventura County Reopens website. And I am taking us to the page that I sent you because this is where you can download your own sample standard operating procedures. You'll see that the stages look familiar. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see also that the industry categories look familiar. But what you've got here are templates that you are welcome to download and use, and maybe just totally repurpose as they are, or you can adapt them and flesh them out for your own needs. So for example, if I were to click on hair salons, what I've got here is what might look familiar to anyone who has had to comply with something like food safety requirements or OSHA requirements. This is where you can start to get a general sense of what specific kinds of behavior are helpful for a salon and barbershop workplace. So your work site being the physical environment. Then you get a bunch of individual behaviors that you can simply adopt and use when you're trying to help your employees get up to speed, keep themselves and their customers safe. The individual control measures add a little bit more detail related to that industry. And this is, I think, where you get the most bang for your buck, because this is where the steps to follow align with both the state and whatever are the CDC guidelines for that particular industry. And if there are any additional details particular to your industry, so for example, salons and barbershops have a lot to do when it comes to cleaning and disinfecting protocols, just as food service businesses do. It's all there. Physical distancing guidelines are not going to be terribly different industry by industry, but consider, for example, one of the things that you're going to see here is be very careful with anything that you're using that blows air around, like blow drying. And then, you know, this is intended for businesses in Ventura County to just sign off and send over. So this is not particular to Humboldt County, but if you wanted to use it as the basis for your plan, you certainly could. These are very good, concrete, practical steps to take. And there's retail, office workspaces, and lo and behold, food packing. So the link is in the chat box. We will send it afterwards. What I would suggest, if you really want to go into some detail here, is take this to your business advisor if you're an SBDC client and want some help sort of thinking this through. And ask if they will go through it with you, if there are any aspects here that are helpful to not just have to think through solo. I also know a bunch of business owners who have been building their plans, essentially in partnership with fellow business owners in the same industry. You may be competitors, but you're also able to be in cooperation for something like this. And then I think it's also important to note that some of this might change, but the general principles that we're going to follow here are a good idea to get a handle on now, because we're learning that it's entirely possible that there might be another spike in infections after things reopen. We're learning that the fall and winter flu season might bring a return of infections. So if we get it right now, then we can hop from more open to more closed to more open to more closed without as much lead time as we've needed this go round. So let us now go to Q&A. And I'm going to invite you to please keep chiming your questions in as we answer them here. And if anyone needs to vocalize their question instead of typing it in, please note that in the chat box and I will unmute you. Oh, I'm sorry, one quick little reminder here. I just saw an alert that came out this afternoon from the Department of Public Health saying that they recommend actually that employees and business owners go ahead and get tested for COVID periodically. So the specific message, I'm just going to read it out, and then there's information about how to access that help for testing in the chat box. Do you own or work at a recently reowned business? Employees and others who work closely with people are encouraged to get tested for COVID-19 on an ongoing basis. There's no particular interval recommended, but they don't recommend testing more often than every 2 weeks, every 14 days. So to register for a COVID-19 test or retest, they give information about how to access the Redwood Acres community testing site in Eureka. And there is a website and a phone number to use there in the chat box, and we will include it in the follow-up. Okay, so we have a caterer saying, I have my approved plan in place for catering, but I'm listed under deliveries for the best fit. But I'm also adding dressings for retail, so bottling and packing dressings. Should I change to the food packing or am I okay? This one's for you, Scott. I think you've answered it, but go ahead and just recap.
Yeah, I will bring my video back here. Okay. So what I would recommend that you do if you have a delivery or an approved plan already for catering, and I know that you're listed as deliveries, it's probably that the Joint Information Center did that because they did not have a separate category for catering, and so they put you under the delivery section. But you're also then putting together, you have a retail operation or a retail component to your business. I would suggest submitting a second retail plan for the JIC to review. And if there are any questions, I guess, concerning that plan, then they'll reach out to you. But that would be my recommendation, is to do a second retail plan.
Thanks, Scott. Next question. If a business is not open to the public, do they need a plan?
Yeah, that's another question that has come up. So every business right now, according to the way that we've received direction from the state and from the public health officer, every business needs a plan, even if they're not open to the public. And even if you don't have employees, you still need to have some sort of plan that you submit to the county so that the county understands how you're going to protect yourself, protect your employees, or if you don't have them, your customers, or if you don't have them, just other members of the public, suppliers, landlords, utility workers. As a business, unless you're locked away, there's someone typically that you're working with. And even if it's that you're working out of your car, and you don't really have an office per se, and you're going to visit your customers or your clients, you can still include a plan and put a plan together that may state, I will wash my hands thoroughly before leaving my house to go visit a customer. I'll have hand sanitizer in my car. I will respect and adhere to any, if I'm meeting with my client at their home or a customer at their home, if they have, hand washing requirements, etc. A lot of this is stuff that everyone is already doing to protect stakeholders they work with. It's just putting it down on paper and submitting it to the public health officer so that they understand what you're doing.
Thanks, Scott. So the two parts of follow-up, Lori and Nicole, I think got answered, but just to reaffirm, if you have several employees that may or may not be in the office at the same time, or if you're a sole prop working alone in your office, yep, you still need a plan. And Nicole, should I put my mobile massage business under barber and salons? Good question.
I would put that under limited services and just explain in your plan what it is that you do. And then if the Joint Information Center feels that your plan is best suited under another category, they'll move it over for you.
Okay. So Livia, my love, you said, you asked a question, and I think I need a follow-up explanation so that we can answer this well. I'm a brow bar and find I am not falling under salon, as I am not able to go back to work in waxing / aesthetics. I'm working out of another retail space that will most likely be open before me. Should I include the plan for that business, for that retail space in mine? So the little bit of clarification that I think might be helpful is, if you're not doing the brow bar work, what specifically are you doing to operate your business? And then the second part of the question for Scott is, you're someone leasing a space within somebody else's area. Do you just copy and paste their own safety plan?
So we have run into scenarios where independent contractors or W-9 employees are working inside of another space that maybe they don't control, that the landlord or the other business has control over that space. And we will typically break it down to a matter of, who has the liability? If someone were to slip and fall, who's liable for that incident? And whoever has that liability is the individual who should be creating and submitting a plan for that space. However, some independent contractors, they're also acting as business owners. And even though it may be a landlord or another business who controls the space and may implement protocols or requirements for protecting employees and employers in that physical space, the independent contractor who's maybe subleasing or working inside of that space is still interacting with customers, and that independent contractor, as a business owner, still needs a plan for how they will be protecting customers, even though maybe they're not responsible for the walls and the roof and the floors. They're responsible for how they're interacting with their customers and the services that they're providing. So they can still submit a plan, even if it's missing the details concerning the actual physical premises. And they can simply state in their plan, I'm an independent contractor, or I sublease space from this other business. They have created and submitted their own plan. Here is my plan. When in doubt, I just tell businesses to submit. There's nothing wrong if you submit a plan and it doesn't seem relevant, you're not going to be penalized for it, but at least the Joint Information Center then has it on file, or they have a record of it.
Thanks, Scott. And I did go ahead and unmute. Go ahead if you want to dig a little deeper, Levia, go ahead.
I think that mostly answers my question. For the most part, I was concerned because I work inside of another retail space that will for sure be open before me. She is phase 2. I am phase 3, and we still don't know what waxing aesthetics is going to look like because we still aren't falling under salon. And so it sounds like I just need to submit with the information of how I'm going to be around her clients or how I'm going to work in that retail location, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I think as long as that's how it is, and then it sounds like as far as waxing and aesthetics, I'm going to be going under limited.
Yeah, and you put it under limited services, and then just state somewhere in your plan that you're actually leasing space or you're working in a space of another retailer, and you can say this is who the retailer is. They're submitting their own plan.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. And I'm sure that question is going to prove helpful to somebody else. I appreciate that you asked it. So there was someone who asked, oh, I think it was you again, Levia. That's a good question, which is if I need to get tested every 2 weeks, or my employees do, what does it cost? And the short answer is it's free. I'm taking us now to the portion of the COVID testing, Redwood Acres COVID testing FAQ, frequently asked questions, that addresses this. They're not going to ask for a copay. If you have insurance, they are going to ask for your health insurance information so they can bill the company. But if you do not have health insurance, you're going to get tested anyway at no charge. And my hope is that that continues through the long term, because if it doesn't, then I think we're going to be running into situations where folks are nervous to get tested because they're worried about the cost. So that actually segues us into another one of our polls, and I'm gonna pop this up in front of you as soon as I answer one more question, which is what sectors and plans are being accepted for right now. I know that we answered this question early, but I think it's worth revisiting just as a sort of a nice cherry on top. I am now on the business compliance homepage for this process for Humboldt County. And it says right there at the very top what the state's determination and the county's affirmation is of who is not yet going to get their reopening plans approved. And everybody else, reopening plan forms, everybody else has a place to start to submit your plan at the bottom. So I hope that answers your question pretty easily. So one of the things that we are trying to figure out is what we can be doing to continue to support business owners as they figure out how to operate. So the poll that I'm launching is something that I'm capturing and then using to advocate with the cross-sector group that meets several times a week. What it's asking is, what's going to help you to prepare your reopening plan? And it can be something that looks like technical assistance, like more of these Q&As. But it could also be, listen, I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford all these damn masks and hand sanitizer. I could really use some help with that. Or I have a supplier for hand sanitizer, but they keep running out. And, what if they run out and I just don't have any? Am I supposed to stop doing business? So we're working on things like how can we secure a good supply chain and good cost and good prices for materials. So the poll is up in front of you. I encourage you. I would really love to know, everyone, what's going to prove to be most helpful for you. And if we've missed anything here that's top of mind, just go ahead and pop it in the chat box and we will take that into account as well. I'm going to give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I'll end the poll and I will share it. So what we're seeing here is maybe we can continue periodically to have these live Q&As with folks who are guiding businesses as they prepare to operate. The official checklists for safety and hygiene best practices, you know, let's just save you some time. And I think that these standard operating procedures I mentioned will help with that. So it's interesting, webinars by industry on specific safe reopening practices. One of the things that I've learned is that a lot of industry association groups are releasing that themselves, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But I do, when folks say yes to this, ask, hey, what do you know that's out there that we could simply make sure that everyone knows about? For example, last time I asked this 3 weeks ago, someone said, you know what, I'm a barbershop owner and we had access to an excellent webinar and sample reopening plan from, I guess, a barber or salon association. So we just captured that and we shared it back around. So we're seeing a pretty significant yes to help to pay for supplies and especially space retooling, especially because nobody right now has really excellent cash flow unless you're, I don't know, a grocery store, for example, or someone who is in high demand. And then the bulk purchasing program, maybe. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and I wanted to buy you some time to pose any additional questions that you might have. I am not seeing any, so we may be at a point where we can wrap up. I'm going to launch the very last poll, which is your invitation to tell us what you want to learn next. This is, please, you know, weigh in on what you want the next topics to be for this webinar series. More guidance on digital marketing, on e-commerce, help with the sort of exit from your business so that you know how to plan for that. If you happen to get to that point, you'll know in advance how to prepare for it. A lot of business owners have come to us saying, I could not get my loan applications approved because my financials were not good enough, or I hadn't filed my taxes, or what have you. And so we're working with those folks who weren't able to secure loans so that if they are in need to later, they're better prepared. We're also working with folks who just want to get a really good handle on their financials because they're encountering the need to do things like weekly cash forecasting instead of monthly. Or they were able to sort of keep only half an eye on their income and expense statements, but now they really need to understand how to do planning based on those, and they want some guidance. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. And it looks like we have a couple of respondents. We're looking at help on exit planning, worst case scenario planning, so that you can just, let's spend some time, talk about everything that worries us, figure out what we're going to do if we ever get to that point, and then we can set it aside because we've done our planning. And then pivoting. How do I get creative and keep revenue flowing? What are other folks doing that I can learn from? That is very helpful. Thank you. You've said you need it. We're going to figure out how to put it on. I appreciate that. Okay, so the last thing I do with these is I just go crazy. So if you've got noise in your background, get ready, because I'm about to unmute everybody in case anyone wants to weigh in on one last thing. Livia, you are already unmuted. Chris, you are now unmuted. Janet, Javon, I'll let it talk. There it is. The system is a little bit slow, but it's working. It's working. Lori, you are unmuted, and Nicole. So Janet and Lori are two of our business advisors. Everyone else is a business owner. Feel free to unmute yourself. What do you think? Final thoughts on any topic?
I do have a final thought while individuals are unmuting. I love Livia's background. I'm trying to figure out what she's leaning on there. That's
it's a mural of Old Town. It's the Old Town mural on, what street is that? It's behind
it's sort
Taste
of
of Bim.
Yeah, yeah, around the
Oh, okay.
corner near Opera Alley.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't sure which email that was, but it's great. It's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love it too. Anyone else? Final thoughts, questions, reflections?
I was thinking having someone who's professional to help us come up with a good infection control plan, because I think every business is so different, and just having some guidance on walking through how to keep the infection control best for your business. That's, I feel like that's a big need for me, and I could imagine other people as well.
Yeah, you know, there are cleaning services that are doing this for other businesses. I wonder if we couldn't convince one of them to be a guest speaker and have them talk about what they do and why, and what non-cleaning experts can do. There are certainly Department of Public Health people who might be able to advise on that as well. But I think they're a little busy right now. So, but yeah, that's a good question. What else? Janet and Lori, as business advisors, is this syncing up with what you've been hearing our clients need? And is there anything that really stands out as something that we would need to pay attention to next to support them?
This is Janet, and everything that's being said is totally syncing up with what I've been coaching clients with. I'd also like to encourage everybody to go get their free COVID testing. I did that a week and a half ago or so, and it was not as scary as I built it up to be. I'd seen everybody on TV have this, 6-inch Q-tip jammed up their nose, and I just wasn't looking forward to it. But it was okay. It was really easy. You go to the website, you sign up, they ask some questions, you get your specific ID number that you must not lose, or you have to go through the whole process again. That's how they keep your test straight. You make a time-specific appointment. There was nobody waiting in front of me, so I was in and out in less than 10 minutes. But I saw that there were 6-foot tape lines on the ground for maybe 20 people. So factor that in for time, but it was easy. And from everything that I'm hearing, the better statistics in a county come from having more tests done and seeing who's positive and who's negative, and then making plans accordingly. So I think that's something we can all do.
That's helpful, Janet. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so I think we've gotten to a natural stopping point. I want to thank you for joining us and for letting us walk you through a process that is frankly probably the last thing you want to add to your lives as you're trying to stay in business and stay in the black. Let us help you in any way we can, and if we don't know the answers, we'll do our best to hunt them down. Janet, Lori, and other business advisors are educating themselves 1 or more times a week. They are on briefings and webinars to make sure that they know what the latest information is. So turn to us at SBDC if we can help you. And Scott, thank you so much. I know that you don't have a lot of free time these days, so I appreciate the investment you made in helping to educate folks. So I'm going to stop recording.